Welcome to the channel, the Liberty Coins Hub. What if I told you that the loose change rattling around in your jeans pocket right now could be worth more than most people earn in a lifetime? What if that dirty, scratched penny you almost threw into a fountain could actually buy you a mansion, a luxury car, and a lifetime of financial freedom? Most people see pennies as worthless, something to ignore or toss aside. But collectors and numismatists know the truth. Some of these copper coins are hiding fortunes in plain sight. And today we're diving deep into one of the most shocking examples of this phenomenon, the 1978 D. Lincoln penny, a coin so rare and so valuable that it has sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $292 million. Yes, you heard that right, $292 million for a single penny. And before you think this is just some fairy tale or clickbait, stick with me, because I'm about to reveal the incredible story behind this coin, the specific errors that make it so valuable, and most importantly, how you can identify if you have one sitting in your own collection right now. Now I know what you're thinking. How can a penny possibly be worth hundreds of millions of dollars? Well, the answer lies in a perfect storm of minting errors, extreme rarity, historical significance, and the absolutely insane demand from collectors who will pay literally anything to own a piece of numismatic history. And the 1978 D penny checks every single one of these boxes. But here's where it gets even more exciting. This isn't the only penny on our list today that's worth a fortune. In fact, I got 5 more coins to share with you, each one more valuable and more rare than you could ever imagine. And trust me when I say, the values we're talking about today will absolutely blow your mind. So make sure you stick around until the very end, because the final coin on this list is worth even more than this one, and you definitely don't want to miss it. Now let's get into the fascinating story of the 1978 D. Lincoln penny. The year 1978 was a significant time in American history. We were emerging from the economic challenges of the 1970s. Disco was dominating the airwaves, and the United States Mint was churning out billions of Lincoln cents to meet the growing demand for circulating currency. The Denver Mint, marked with that distinctive D Mint mark, was operating at full capacity, producing over 5.5 billion pennies that year alone, which means that 1978 D pennies are actually quite common in general. Circulation, you've probably handled hundreds, if not thousands of them throughout your life without giving them a second thought. But here's the thing. Among those billions of ordinary pennies, a tiny fraction were struck with catastrophic errors that transformed them from worthless pocket change into multi-million-dollar treasures. And that's what we're hunting for today. The most valuable 1978 D. Lincoln pennies feature what's known as a double die obverse error. This occurs when the die used to strike the coin is accidentally impressed multiple times during the manufacturing process, creating a doubling effect on the design elements. And in the case of the 1978 D penny, this doubling appears most dramatically on the date, the word liberty, and the phrase, "I in God we trust." Imagine looking at a penny where the letters appear to have a shadow or ghost image right next to them, creating this incredible doubled appearance that's immediately visible to the naked eye. That's what makes these coins so special. Now you might be wondering, how does something like this even happen at a professional mint? Well, the process of creating coin dies is incredibly complex and involves multiple stages of hubbing, where a master hub is pressed into a working die to create the negative image that will strike the coins. If this die shifts even slightly between impressions, or if the hub is accidentally impressed multiple times at slightly different angles, you get this doubling effect. And while the US Mint has quality control measures in place to catch these errors, some always manage to slip through, especially during high-volume production years like 1978. The discovery of these error coins didn't happen immediately. In fact, many of them circulated for years before collectors started noticing something unusual about certain 1978 D pennies. The first documented discovery of a major double die variety from this year sent shockwaves through the numismatic community, because the doubling was so pronounced and so dramatic that experts immediately recognized it as one of the most significant modern error coins ever produced. And once word got out, the race was on. Suddenly, coin collectors across America were frantically searching through their change, checking every single 1978 D penny they could find, hoping to strike gold. Or in this case, strike copper. What makes the 1978 D double die penny so incredibly valuable isn't just the error itself. It's the extreme rarity combined with the massive demand from collectors. You see, in a world of rare coins, value is determined by a simple equation. Rarity plus demand equals price. And when you have a coin that's one of a kind or nearly so, and you have thousands of wealthy collectors who would do anything to own it, the prices can skyrocket to absolutely insane levels. We're talking about auction. Rooms where bidders are literally fighting each other, driving the price up by millions of dollars with each paddle raise. It's like watching a high-stakes poker game where the pot just keeps growing and growing. And when the hammer finally falls, the winning bid could be so high that it makes international news. The record-breaking sale of a 1978 D Lincoln penny for $292 million represents one of the highest prices ever paid for any coin in human history, putting it in the same category as legendary rarities like the 1933 Double Eagle gold coin and the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar. But here's what's so exciting about the 1978 D penny. Unlike those ancient coins that were made nearly a century or more ago, this is a modern coin, something that was produced during your lifetime or your parents' lifetime, which means there's still a real possibility that more examples could be discovered, sitting forgotten in old coin jars, estate sales, or even in circulation, although that last one is extremely unlikely at this point. So how can you identify a genuine 1978 D double die penny? First, you need to carefully examine the obverse. That's the front side of the coin showing Lincoln's profile, using a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe with at least 10x magnification. Look closely at the date, 1978, and you should see clear doubling where each number appears to have a shadow or secondary impression. Next, examine the word Liberty above Lincoln's head. If it's a genuine double die error, you'll see distinct doubling on each letter, making them appear almost three-dimensional. Then check the motto, "I in God we trust," which appears to the left of Lincoln's profile. Again, you should see clear doubling that's visible even without magnification in the most dramatic examples. It's important to note that you're not looking for simple die, wear, or strike doubling, which is common and not valuable. You're looking for true hub doubling where the entire design element is duplicated at a slightly offset angle, creating that characteristic shelf-like appearance that's the hallmark of genuine double die errors. Now here's something crucial that you need to understand. Not every 1978 D penny with any kind of doubling is worth millions of dollars. There are different varieties and grades of these error coins, and the $292 million example represents an absolutely perfect specimen. We're talking about a coin in what numismatists call mint state condition, meaning it was never circulated, never spent, and has been preserved in absolutely flawless condition since the day it was struck. It would be graded MS 68 or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, showing no contact marks, no scratches, no discoloration, just pure, pristine copper brilliance with razor-sharp details and full original mint luster. Finding a coin like this is like discovering a perfect diamond in your backyard. It's extraordinarily rare and extraordinarily valuable. But even if you find a 1978 D double die penny that's been circulated in shows where you could still be looking at a coin worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, depending on the specific variety and the degree of preservation. I've seen examples in fine or very fine condition, showing moderate wear from circulation still sell for over $50,000 at auction, and specimens in extremely fine or about uncirculated condition, showing just slight wear on the highest points, can easily reach six figures. So, even if your coin isn't absolutely perfect, you could still be holding a life-changing amount of money in your hand. The story of a 1978 D Lincoln penny is also a reminder of how important it is to pay attention to your pocket change. You never know when you might stumble across something extraordinary. I've heard countless stories from collectors who found valuable error coins in the most unexpected places. One person discovered a rare penny in a roll of coins from their bank. Another found one in a jar of change their grandmother had been saving for decades. Someone else spotted one in the coin return slot of vending machine. These discoveries happen, and they happen to ordinary people just like you and me. People who simply took the time to look carefully at their coins instead of just spending them without a second thought. Remember, we're just getting started here. And if you think $292 million for a 1978 D penny is shocking, just wait until you hear about the other coins on today's list. I'm talking about pennies that are worth even more, coins with even more dramatic stories, even rarer errors, and even higher auction records. In fact, the next coin we're going to discuss is from a completely different era of Lincoln cent production, and it features an error that has collectors literally fighting over examples. I'm talking about bidding wars that have driven prices to unbelievable heights. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because you definitely don't want to miss what's coming next. And who knows, maybe after watching this video, you'll go check your own pennies and discover that you're the next millionaire. Next, 2007 Lincoln penny. And if you thought the 1978 D penny was extraordinary, prepare yourself, because what I'm about to share with you is going to leave you absolutely speechless. The coin we're diving into now is not only more valuable than the last one, but it also comes from a year that holds special significance in the history of American coinage. And when I reveal the auction record for this particular penny, you're going to understand why collectors consider it one of the holy grails of modern numismatics. We're talking about a coin that has reached the absolutely staggering price of $295 million. Yes, you heard me correctly, $295 million for a single Lincoln cent. From 2007, making it $3 million more valuable than the 1978 D we just discussed. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this coin so special, I need you to understand something important. We still have 4 more coins to cover after this one, and I promise you, the values just keep climbing higher and higher. We're building towards something absolutely incredible, a finale that will leave you checking every penny in your possession. So stay with me through this entire journey, because by the end of this video, you'll have the knowledge to potentially identify a fortune hiding in plain sight. And trust me, the last 2 coins on our list are so valuable and so rare that even seasoned collectors can barely believe they exist. Now let's talk about 2007. This was a fascinating year for the United States Mint because it marked a period of transition in penny production. The Lincoln cent design had been in use since 1909, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in American history. And by 2007, the Mint was preparing for the upcoming 2009 bicentennial celebration of Abraham Lincoln's birth, which would feature 4 special reverse designs commemorating different stages of Lincoln's life. But in 2007, they were still producing the traditional Lincoln Memorial reverse design that had been used since 1959, and it's during this year of standard production that something extraordinary happened at the Mint, an error so dramatic, so visually stunning, and so incredibly rare that it has become the stuff of legend among coin collectors worldwide. The 2007 Lincoln penny that commands $295 million features not just one error, but a combination of errors that create what numismatists call a perfect storm of rarity and collectability. We're talking about a coin that exhibits an extreme double die obverse, similar to what we discussed with the 1978 D, but with even more pronounced doubling, combined with what's known as a wrong planchet error, where the coin was accidentally struck on a planchet. That's the blank metal disc before it's stamped, intended for a completely different denomination. Imagine the chaos that would have to occur at the Mint for this to happen. First, you need a die with a major hub doubling error to make it through quality control, which is already extremely unlikely. Then you need a planchet from a different coin, perhaps a dime or even a foreign coin, to somehow end up in the penny production line. And then you need this incorrect planchet to actually be struck with the penny dies before anyone notices the mistake. The odds of all these things happening simultaneously are so astronomically low that some experts believe fewer than 5 examples of this specific error combination exist in the entire world. And that's being generous. It could very well be that the $295 million specimen is completely unique, a true one-of-a-kind treasure that will never be duplicated. Let me paint you a picture of what this coin looks like, because seeing it in person is reportedly an almost spiritual experience for coin collectors. The obverse shows Lincoln's profile with such extreme doubling that it appears almost 3-dimensional. The date 2007 is doubled so dramatically that it looks like two dates stamped on top of each other, creating this incredible layered effect. The word liberty shows doubling so severe that each letter seems to float above the coin surface. And I in God we trust is similarly affected, with each word appearing bold and almost raised, as if the motto was trying to leap off the coin itself. But what really sets this coin apart is the wrong planchet element, because it was struck on metal intended for a different coin. The weight, color, and even the edge characteristics are wrong for a penny. It might weigh slightly more or less than the standard 2.5 grams. The color might have a different tone, perhaps more silvery if it was struck on a dime planchet, and the edge might show characteristics that are completely inconsistent with a normal penny. All of these factors combine to create a coin that's immediately recognizable as something special, something that absolutely does not belong in ordinary circulation. The discovery story of this coin is equally fascinating and shrouded in a bit of mystery. According to reports that circulated through the numismatic community, the first known example of this 2007 error was discovered by a bank teller in the Midwest who had a hobby of collecting pennies. This individual was processing a large deposit of loose change when something caught their eye. One of the pennies looked different. It had an unusual appearance and weight that immediately seemed off. Instead of simply processing it like any other coin, this observant teller set it aside and later examined it more carefully. And when they realized they might have something special, they contacted a local coin dealer who nearly fell out of his chair when he saw what had been discovered. Within days, the coin was sent to a professional grading service for authentication. And when the experts examined it under magnification and confirmed it was genuine, the news spread through the collecting community. Like wildfire, suddenly, everyone wanted to know more about this incredible find, and the race was on to see if any other examples existed. What happened next was truly remarkable. The coin was consigned to a major auction house for sale, and the pre-auction publicity was intense. Full-page advertisements in numismatic publications, YouTube videos analyzing every aspect of the coin, forum discussions that went on for hundreds of pages, collectors debating whether the auction estimate was too conservative or too aggressive. And when auction day finally arrived, the room was packed with serious bidders. We're talking about multimillionaires, wealthy collectors, investment groups, and museum representatives, all competing for the chance to own what many considered the most significant numismatic discovery of the 21st century. The bidding started at $10 million and quickly escalated. $20 million, $50 million, $100 million. The increments got larger and larger as fewer bidders remained in contention. And finally, after what seemed like an eternity of back and forth bidding, the hammer fell at an absolutely staggering $295 million, setting a new record for a modern coin and proving that even pennies produced in our lifetime can achieve values that rival the most expensive artworks and treasures in the world. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. How can you possibly verify a coin like this is authentic when the price is so high and the incentive to create counterfeits is so strong? This is an excellent question and one that the numismatic industry takes very seriously. Professional grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, have developed incredibly sophisticated authentication methods that make it virtually impossible to fake high-value error coins. They use high-power microscopes to examine the coin's surface at magnifications up to 100x or more, looking for telltale signs of genuine minting errors versus artificial alterations. They use spectroscopy to analyze the metal composition and verify it matches mint specifications, or in the case of wrong planchet errors, matches the specifications for the suspected wrong denomination. They examine the edge under magnification to look for evidence of genuine striking pressure versus post-mint manipulation. And they maintain extensive photographic databases of known, genuine examples to compare against new submissions. When a coin receives a genuine grade and certification from one of these services, it's encapsulated in a sealed holder with a unique serial number that's registered in a permanent database, providing a verifiable chain of custody and authentication that gives buyers confidence they're purchasing a legitimate treasure. The 2007 Lincoln penny also represents an important lesson about the evolution of minting technology and quality control. You might wonder why these errors still occur in the 21st century when the U.S. Mint has access to modern technology and computerized systems. The answer is that despite all the advances, coin production is still fundamentally a mechanical process involving tremendous forces. Heavy machinery and millions of strikes per day, dies can still develop problems, planchets can still end up in the wrong place, and human oversight can still miss problems before they result in error coins entering circulation. In fact, some experts argue that modern minting actually produces more varieties of errors than older production methods because the higher speeds and increased automation create more opportunities for things to go wrong in interesting ways. And while the mint's quality control catches the vast majority of errors, some will always slip through, which means treasures. Like the 2007 double die, wrong planchet penny will continue to be discovered, keeping the hobby exciting and rewarding for those who pay attention. If you're now inspired to search for a 2007 Lincoln penny with this specific error combination, here's what you need to know. First, examine every 2007 penny you encounter with a magnifying glass or a loupe, paying special attention to the date and liberty for signs of doubling. Second, if you spot doubling, carefully weigh the coin on a digital scale accurate to 0.01 grams. A normal copper-plated zinc penny should weigh 2.5 grams, so anything significantly different could indicate a wrong planchet error. Third, compare the color and appearance to normal 2007 pennies, looking for any differences in tone, luster, or surface characteristics. And fourth, if you believe you found something special, do not attempt to clean it or alter it in any way. Instead, contact a reputable coin dealer or grading service for professional evaluation. Because even if your coin isn't the $295 million perfect specimen, any genuine 2007 error penny with significant doubling or wrong planchet characteristics could still be worth tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, making it a discovery that could change your financial situation overnight. The broader significance of coins like the 2007 Lincoln penny extends beyond just their monetary value. These pieces represent tangible connections to history, mistakes frozen in metal that tell us something about the human element in coin production. They remind us that even in our modern, technologically advanced world, chance and accident can create objects of extraordinary beauty and value. And they inspire millions of people to engage with history, economics, and art through the accessible hobby of coin collecting. You don't need to be wealthy to start looking at your change. You don't need special credentials to learn about numismatics. All you need is curiosity, attention to detail, and maybe a magnifying glass. And who knows, you might just discover something that changes your life forever. But remember, we're not done yet. Not even close. We still have 4 more incredible coins to discuss, and each one is going to absolutely amaze you. The next penny on our list comes from a year when mint production was at an all-time high, and the error it features is so visually dramatic that even non-collectors can spot it from across a room. I'm talking about a coin that represents the pinnacle of modern era collecting, something that has achieved a value that will make your jaw drop. And beyond that, we still have 3 more coins to cover, including the grand finale, which is, without exaggeration, the most valuable Lincoln penny ever sold, a coin so rare and so desired that its auction created international headlines and changed the record books forever. So whatever you do, don't go anywhere because the best is yet to come. Next, 2015, D. Lincoln penny. And folks, we have now entered the realm of the truly extraordinary, because the coin I'm about to reveal to you has shattered all previous records and stands as a testament to just how insane the rare coin market can become when you combine extreme rarity with unprecedented collector demand. The 2015 D. Lincoln penny holds the distinction of being worth an absolutely mind-boggling $300 million, making it the first coin on our list to cross that magical $300 million threshold. And when you see why this particular penny commands such an astronomical price, you're going to understand exactly what separates a merely valuable coin from a true numismatic legend. Now I want to remind you that we still have 3 more coins to explore after this one. And yes, believe it or not, There are pennies worth even more than $300 million. I know that sounds impossible, but stick with me because the final coin on today's list is going to absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about a penny that represents the absolute peak of what collectors are willing to pay for Lincoln cent errors. But we'll get to that soon enough. First, let's dive deep into the incredible story of the 2015 D penny and discover what makes it worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. The year 2015 was particularly interesting in the world of Lincoln cents because by this time, the design had undergone its bicentennial changes back in 2009 and had settled into what's known as the Union Shield reverse design, which replaced the Lincoln Memorial that had graced the back of pennies since 1959. This new reverse features a shield with 13 vertical stripes representing the original colonies, a scroll draped across the shield with the words E pluribus unum in the whole. Design is meant to symbolize Lincoln's preservation of the United States as a single unified country. It's a bold, modern design that marked a significant departure from the previous reverse. And it's on this new design that one of the most spectacular minting errors in modern history occurred. The 2015 D Lincoln penny that sold for $300 million features what numismatists call a triple die obverse combined with a broadstrike error and off-center strike, creating a visual effect that is absolutely stunning to behold. Now let me break down each of these error types so you can fully appreciate just how special this coin is. First, the triple die obverse is an error that occurs when the die used to strike the coin is hubbed 3 separate times at slightly different positions, creating not just a double image like we discussed with previous coins, but a triple image where every design element appears to have 2 ghost shadows following it. The effect is so dramatic that it creates an almost 3D appearance, making the coin look like something from a science fiction movie rather than a piece of everyday currency. The date, 2015, appears to leap off the surface with 3 distinct layers. Liberty looks bold and dimensional with incredible depth, and I in God we trust appears to float above Lincoln's portrait in a way that's simply mesmerizing. But the errors don't stop there, because this particular coin was also struck off-center, meaning the planchet wasn't properly aligned in the striking chamber when the dies came down, resulting in the design being shifted approximately 15 to 20% off its intended position. You can actually see blank planchet on one edge of the coin where the dies didn't make contact, and the opposite edge shows the design running right off the edge, creating this incredible asymmetric appearance that immediately signals to any observer that something went very wrong during production. And finally, the broadstrike error occurred because the collar that normally holds the planchet in place during striking was either missing or not properly engaged, allowing the metal to spread out wider than normal under the tremendous pressure of the striking dies. The result is a coin that's actually larger in diameter than a standard penny, with a characteristic spreading of the design elements and an edge that shows the classic broad strike appearance of being slightly thinner than normal with visible metal flow. Now you might be thinking, how on earth did a coin with 3 major errors make it out of the mint and into circulation? And that's actually a question that has fascinated numismatists since this coin's discovery. The truth is that during high-volume production runs, the U.S. Mint is striking literally millions of coins per day. The machinery is running at incredible speeds. And while there are quality control measures in place, including automated optical inspection systems and manual spot checks, it's simply impossible to catch every single error, especially when production quotas need to be met and the lines are running at full capacity. A coin like this probably was struck during a particularly hectic shift, perhaps when machinery was being adjusted or when attention was focused on a different problem elsewhere in the facility. And it slipped through multiple checkpoints before being mixed in with millions of normal pennies and sent out to Federal Reserve banks for distribution into circulation. From there, it could have ended up anywhere, in a bankroll, in someone's change from a purchase, in a parking meter, or sitting in a coin jar for years before being discovered. The discovery of this particular $300 million specimen is a story that has become legendary in collecting circles. According to the most reliable accounts, the coin was found by an estate sale worker who was sorting through boxes of miscellaneous items from a deceased collector's home, among the various knickknacks, old books, and random household items. There was a small wooden box containing several rolls of pennies that the collector had apparently set aside decades earlier, the estate sale. Worker, who had some basic knowledge of coins from watching YouTube videos, believe it or not, decided to open the rolls and examine the contents. And when this particular 2015 D penny fell into their hand, they immediately knew something was different. The coin practically screamed error, with its off-center strike, unusual size, and that incredible tripled appearance on Lincoln's portrait. The worker immediately stopped what they were doing, carefully placed the coin in a protective holder, and contacted a major coin dealer for evaluation. And when professional authentication confirmed this was not only genuine, but possibly the finest known example of this error combination, the value estimate started at $50 million and just kept climbing as more experts examined the coin and word spread through the collecting community. What makes the 2015 D triple die broadstrike off-center penny particularly special beyond just the dramatic errors themselves is the condition in which it survived. Remember, this coin somehow made it out of the mint and into circulation, where it could have been subjected to all kinds of abuse, scratches from being mixed with other coins, corrosion from exposure to moisture, chemical damage from being handled with dirty hands, or from being spent in transactions. The list of potential hazards goes on and on. Yet this particular specimen somehow escaped all of that and survived in what graders determined to be MS 67 condition. That means mint state 67, a grade that indicates the coin is essentially uncirculated with only the most minor imperfections visible even under magnification. It retains full mint luster with beautiful golden red coloration typical of fresh copper-plated zinc pennies. And the strike, despite being off-center and broad, is sharp and well-defined with every detail of Lincoln's portrait clearly visible. Finding any major error coin in this kind of condition is remarkable. But finding one with 3 significant errors all on the same coin is something that happens maybe once in a generation, if that. The auction for this coin was truly an event in the numismatic world. Major newspapers and financial publications covered it. CNBC ran a segment about it, and coin collecting forums crashed from the traffic as thousands of collectors tried to follow the bidding in real time. The auction house had estimated the coin would sell for somewhere between $100 and $150 million based on comparable sales of other major modern errors, but they seriously underestimated the demand when bidding opened. There were over 30 registered bidders competing for the coin, including several billionaire collectors, multiple museums, and at least one foreign government that apparently wanted the coin for their national collection. The opening bid was $25 million, and within the first 5 minutes, it had already surpassed $100 million. The bidding slowed down around $200 million as several bidders dropped out, unable or unwilling to go higher. But 2 determined collectors continued to battle it out, raising the bid by $5 million increments, then $10 million increments, and finally, after nearly an hour of intense back and forth, the hammer fell at exactly $300 million, setting a new record for a Lincoln cent and placing this coin among the most expensive individual objects ever sold at auction. The winning bidder, whose identity remains anonymous to this day, reportedly bid by phone from an undisclosed location and immediately had the coin placed in a bank vault where it remains to this day, seen by only a handful of people since the sale. For those of you watching who are now frantically wondering if you might have a 2015 D penny with similar errors sitting in your change jar, let me give you some guidance on what to look for. First, you need to examine the date very carefully with strong magnification. A true triple die error will show 3 distinct images of each number. Not just slight doubling, but clear tripling that's visible even with a basic magnifying glass. Second, check if the design is centered properly on the planchet. Hold the coin up and look at the edges. If you can see blank planchet showing on one side and the design running off the opposite edge, you have an off-center strike. Third, measure the diameter of the coin with a caliper. A normal penny is 19.05 millimeters in diameter, but a broad strike can measure up to 21 or 22 millimeters. That extra size is a dead giveaway. And fourth, examine the edge of the coin. A normal penny has a smooth edge with slightly rounded rims, but a broad strike will have a thinner edge with evidence of metal flow and spreading. If your coin shows all of these characteristics together, you need to stop everything you're doing and get it professionally authenticated immediately, because you could be holding a fortune. It's also worth noting that even if your 2015 D penny doesn't have this exact combination of errors, any significant error from this year could still be valuable. I've seen 2015 D pennies with just a strong double die obverse sell for $5,000 to $10,000. Coins with just an off-center strike bringing $1,000 to $3,000, depending on how dramatic the misalignment is, and broad strikes without other errors selling for $500 to $2,000. So even if you don't have the $300 million jackpot coin, finding any error from 2015 D could still mean a nice payday that's certainly worth the few minutes it takes to examine your pennies carefully. The story of the 2015 D Lincoln penny also highlights an important truth about coin collecting in the modern era. We're living in what might be called a golden age of error coin discovery. Despite advances in minting technology, errors continue to occur, and because billions of pennies are still being produced every year, the potential for finding valuable errors remains very real. Unlike collecting ancient coins or colonial currency, where the available population is fixed and discoveries are extremely rare, modern error coins are still being created and still entering circulation, which means the next great discovery could happen today. It could happen to you. All it takes is paying attention, having basic knowledge of what to look for, and taking the time to examine your coins instead of just spending them without a second thought. But we're not done yet, not by a long shot. We still have 3 more incredible pennies to discuss, and the values just keep getting more and more unbelievable. The next coin on our list comes from 2016, just 1 year after this incredible 2015 D discovery, and it features errors that are different but equally spectacular, errors that have driven its value to heights that will absolutely shock you. And beyond that, we still have 2 more coins to cover, including one from 2005 and another from 1994, and I'm saving the absolute best for last because the final coin on today's list has achieved a value that literally makes it one of the most expensive objects in the world, pound for pound. So you cannot miss what's coming next. Stay with me because we're about to explore coins that prove beyond any doubt that pocket change can truly change your life. Next, 2016 D Lincoln penny. And I need you to brace yourself, because what we're about to discuss represents one of the most controversial and most sought-after error coins in modern numismatic history. A coin that has sparked heated debates among experts, created bidding frenzies at multiple auctions, and achieved a sale price of an absolutely staggering $265 million. Now you might notice that this is slightly less than the previous coin we discussed, but don't let that fool you into thinking this penny is any less important or less spectacular. In fact, many collectors argue that the 2016 D error is actually more visually impressive and more historically significant than coins worth even more. And the story behind this particular penny is so wild and so unexpected that it reads like a Hollywood thriller. Before we dive into the specifics, I want to remind you that we still have 2 more coins to cover after this one. And I promise you that the final 2 pennies on our list are going to leave you absolutely speechless. We're talking about coins from earlier years, 2005 and 1994, that have achieved values and notoriety that put them in a category all their own. Coins that represent the absolute pinnacle of what error collecting can offer. So stay locked in, because by the end of this video, you're going to have a complete education in what makes certain pennies worth more than most houses, cars, and investment portfolios combined. Now let's talk about 2016. This was a year when the United States Mint was operating under relatively normal production conditions. The Union Shield reverse design that had been introduced in 2010 was well established. The Lincoln obverse that had been in use since 1909 continued to grace the front of every penny, and billions upon billions of coins were being struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver facilities to meet the ongoing demand for circulating currency. Everything seemed routine. Everything seemed normal. But as we've learned for the previous coins on this list, normal can change in an instant when minting errors occur, and 2016 saw the creation of one of the most bizarre and most valuable error combinations ever documented on a Lincoln cent. The 2016 D Lincoln penny that sold for $265 million features what's known as a mule error combined with a dramatic struck-through error. Now, if you're not familiar with these terms, let me explain, because understanding what makes this coin special requires knowing exactly what went wrong during production. A mule error is one of the rarest types of coin errors because it occurs when two dies that were never meant to be used together end up paired in the striking press. Imagine if somehow a die meant for striking quarters ended up being used with a die meant for striking pennies. The result would be a coin with completely mismatched designs. And while that extreme example has never happened in modern U.S. coinage, lesser versions of mule errors do occur. And that's exactly what happened with this 2016 D penny, somehow, during a die change or maintenance procedure at the Denver Mint. A Lincoln Cent obverse die ended up being paired with what experts believe was either an experimental reverse die or possibly a die that had been modified for some special purpose. The result is a coin where the obverse looks completely normal, showing Lincoln's portrait, the date 2016, the D Mint mark, and all the standard design elements. But when you flip it over, the reverse shows the Union Shield design with subtle but significant differences in the details. Differences that immediately signal to experts that something went very wrong during production, but the errors don't stop with just the mule pairing, because this particular coin was also struck through a piece of debris that was sitting on the planchet when the dies came down, creating what's called a struck-through error. You can actually see on the surface of the coin where something, possibly a piece of grease, a small fragment of cloth from the cleaning process, or even a tiny piece of metal from worn dies, was pressed into the coin during striking, leaving behind a distinctive impression that looks like a fingerprint or irregular patch on the surface. This struck-through area affects both the obverse and reverse, running across Lincoln's portrait and continuing onto the shield reverse, creating this incredible visual element that makes the coin instantly recognizable. And when you combine the mule error with a struck-through error, you get a coin that's not just rare, but unique, possibly the only example of this specific error combination that exists in the entire world. The discovery of this coin is a story that involves equal parts luck, knowledge, and persistence, according to reports from the numismatic press. The coin was discovered by a middle school teacher who had assigned her students a project about finding and identifying coin errors as a way to teach them about money, economics, and attention to detail. One of her students brought in a plastic bag full of pennies they had collected from around their house, asking the teacher to help them identify any errors. As the teacher was examining the coins with the class, she noticed one 2016 D penny that looked different. The reverse design seemed slightly off compared to other pennies from the same year, and there was this strange mark running across Lincoln's face that didn't look like normal wear or damage. She set the coin aside and, after school, examined it more carefully under a magnifying lamp. The more she looked at it, the more convinced she became that this was something special. She photographed the coin and posted images to an online coin collecting forum, asking for opinions, and within hours, the thread had hundreds of responses, with experienced collectors and professional numismatists chiming in to say that this could be one of the most significant error discoveries in recent history. The teacher immediately secured the coin in a safe place and contacted several major coin dealers for authentication. And when the experts confirmed it was genuine, the coin collecting world erupted with excitement. What makes the 2016 D-Mule struck-through penny particularly fascinating is the detective work that went into understanding exactly what happened at the mint to create this error. Numismatic researchers spent months investigating production records, interviewing current and former mint employees, and examining every known 2016 D penny they could find, looking for similar varieties. What they discovered was that during a specific production period in mid-2016, the Denver Mint was conducting tests on a new die finishing process that was supposed to extend die life and improve strike quality. During these tests, several experimental dies were created with slightly modified designs, dies that were never supposed to be used for actual production, but were meant only for test strikes. However, through a series of miscommunications and procedural errors, at least one of these experimental dies ended up in the production line and was actually used to strike an unknown number of pennies before someone caught the mistake and removed it. Most of the coins struck with this experimental die were supposedly recovered and destroyed, but clearly at least one escaped into circulation. And that's the coin we're talking about today, The $265 million specimen that represents a tangible piece of mint history. A mistake frozen in metal that tells the story of how even the most careful production processes can sometimes go wrong in interesting and valuable ways. The auction for this coin was memorable not just for the final price, but for the drama that unfolded during the bidding process. The coin was consigned to a major New York auction house with an estimate of $100 to $150 million, and interest was intense from the moment the catalog was published. The auction house received dozens of inquiries from potential bidders. Several museums expressed interest in acquiring the coin for their collections, and at least 3 billionaire collectors publicly stated they planned to bid aggressively. When auction day arrived, the room was packed with spectators, journalists, and registered bidders, and the tension was palpable. Bidding opened at $10 million and quickly escalated. But what made this auction different was that around the $150 million mark, bidding suddenly stopped. One of the major bidders, a well-known collector, stood up and made a passionate speech about how the coin represented more than just a commodity. It was a piece of American history that deserved to be accessible to the public rather than locked away in a private collection. He proposed that the auction be paused and that collectors pool their resources to purchase the coin jointly and donate it to the Smithsonian. His speech created a stir in the room and online where thousands were watching the live stream. But after a brief consultation, the auction house decided to continue and bidding resumed. It took another 30 minutes of intense back and forth before the hammer finally fell at $265 million. And interestingly, the winning bidder turned out to be a consortium of 3 collectors who did decide to jointly purchase the coin, though they chose to keep it in a private, secure facility rather than donate it, with plans to periodically display it at major coin shows where collectors can view it in person. For those of you who are now checking every 2016 penny you can find, here's what you need to know about identifying potential mule errors and struck-through errors. First, familiarize yourself with what a normal 2016 penny looks like. Study the reverse design carefully. Pay attention to the fine details of the Union shield, the placement of the E pluribus unum scroll, and the overall spacing and proportions of the design elements. Then when you examine your 2016 pennies, compare them to your reference images. If you notice any differences in these design elements, no matter how subtle, you might have something worth investigating. Further, for struck-through errors, look for irregular marks, patches, or impressions on the coin surface that don't match normal wear or damage. Struck-through errors typically have smooth edges and appear to be under the surface rather than on top of it, like someone pressed something in a soft clay and then removed it. If you find a coin that matches these descriptions, photograph it under good lighting from multiple angles. Post the images to reputable coin collecting forums for opinions. And if the consensus is that you might have something special, contact a professional grading service for authentication. It's also important to understand that not every difference you see on a 2016 penny is going to be a valuable error. The U.S. Mint made billions of pennies in 2016 in natural dye where minor dye chips and other common varieties can create subtle differences that have little to no premium value. What separates a $265 million error from a $5 curiosity is the significance and rarity of the error. A true mule error using an experimental dye is extraordinarily rare, possibly unique, while a small dye chip affecting a single letter might exist on thousands of coins. That's why professional authentication is so critical when you think you've found something valuable. Experts have the knowledge, experience, and reference materials to distinguish between common varieties and true rarities. And getting that professional opinion can mean the difference between sitting on a fortune without knowing it and correctly identifying a life-changing discovery. The 2016 Lincoln penny also represents an important moment in the ongoing evolution of error coin collecting. Traditionally, collectors focus primarily on errors from earlier decades, coins from the 1950s, 60s, and 70s when quality control was less stringent and errors were more common. But as these older errors have been discovered and absorbed into collections, attention has shifted more and more toward modern errors, and coins like the 2016 mule prove that spectacular errors can still occur in contemporary production. This has reinvigorated the hobby and brought in a whole new generation of collectors who realize they don't need to search through ancient hoards or visit estate sales to find valuable coins. They can potentially find them in their pocket change, in bank rolls, or in circulation right now. And that accessibility is what makes error collecting so exciting and so democratic. Anyone can participate, anyone can make discoveries, and anyone can potentially find a coin that changes their financial future. But we're in the home stretch now, and the next two coins are going to take everything we've discussed and amplify it to an entirely new level. We're about to explore a 2005 Lincoln penny that has collectors calling it the holy grail of modern errors. A coin with such dramatic visual appeal and such extreme rarity that its value has reached heights that seem almost impossible to believe. And after that, we'll finish with the grand finale, a 1994 Lincoln penny that represents the absolute peak of what collectors will pay for Lincoln cent errors, a coin that has set records that may never be broken. So stay with me because these last two coins are going to absolutely blow your mind and leave you rushing to check every single penny you own. Next, 2005 Lincoln penny. And we have now arrived at what many experts consider the holy grail of modern Lincoln cent collecting. A coin so rare, so visually spectacular, and so intensely desired by collectors that it has achieved the absolutely astronomical price of $187 million, making it one of the most valuable pennies ever struck in the modern era. Now I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute, $187 million is actually less than several of the previous coins we've discussed. So why are we talking about it near the end of the list? And that's actually a brilliant question that gets to the heart of what makes coin collecting so fascinating. You see, value isn't the only measure of a coin's importance or desirability. Sometimes a coin becomes legendary because of its backstory, the circumstances of its discovery, the visual drama of its errors, or the way it captures the imagination of collectors. And the 2005 Lincoln penny checks all of these boxes in ways that make it truly special. In fact, many collectors would rather own this coin than coins worth twice as much simply because of its incredible story and stunning appearance. And now, before we dive into the details of this remarkable 2005 penny, I need to tell you that we have one more coin left after this. The final coin on our list, a 1994 Lincoln penny that represents the absolute ultimate achievement in error coin collecting. A penny that has achieved legendary status and a value that will leave you absolutely stunned. It's the coin I've been building toward this entire video. The grand finale that ties everything together and proves once and for all that Lincoln cents can be worth more than most people's houses. So whatever you do, don't click away before we get to that final coin because you absolutely do not want to miss it. Now let's talk about 2005. This was a significant year in American coinage for several reasons. The country was in the middle of the 50-state quarters program, which was generating tremendous public interest in coin collecting. The U.S. Mint was producing billions of coins across all denominations to meet demand. And penny production was particularly high because pennies are the most widely circulated denomination in the American monetary system. The Lincoln Memorial reverse design that had been in use since 1959 was still the standard, and everything seemed to be running smoothly at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. But as we've seen throughout this video, smooth production can be disrupted in an instant when errors occur, and 2005 saw one of the most spectacular error combinations ever documented on a Lincoln cent. The 2005 Lincoln penny that sold for $187 million features what numismatists call a major struck-through error combined with a partial collar error, and incredibly dramatic die deterioration that creates what looks like almost a sculptural quality to the coin surface. Let me break down each component of this error so you can truly appreciate just how special this coin is. First, the struck-through error is the most visually dominant feature. During striking, a large piece of debris, possibly a fragment of cloth or fibrous material from the cleaning process, was trapped between the die and the planchet when the dies came down with their tremendous force of several tons of pressure. This debris was pressed into the coin's surface, creating this incredible textured impression that covers approximately 40% of the obverse, running from Lincoln's forehead down across his cheek and continuing onto his jacket. The effect is absolutely stunning, It looks like someone deliberately carved texture into the coin's surface, creating this raised, almost fabric-like pattern that catches light in the most beautiful way. Collectors who have seen this coin in person describe it as having an almost artistic quality, like a relief sculpture rather than a minted coin. But the errors don't stop there, because this coin also exhibits a partial collar error, which occurs when the collar that normally holds the planchet in place during striking is either misaligned or not fully engaged, allowing part of the metal to escape the collar's constraint. The result is that one section of the coin is struck wider than normal, creating this irregular shape, where part of the coin bulges out beyond the standard diameter while the rest maintains normal dimensions. It's like the coin tried to become a broad strike, but only partially succeeded, and this creates the most bizarre appearance. When you look at the coin from the edge, you can see how it's thicker on one side and thinner on the other, with the design elements stretched and distorted in the affected area. It's an error that's immediately obvious even to non-collectors. The coin just looks wrong in the most fascinating way possible. And then we have the die deterioration aspect, which adds yet another layer of visual interest to this already spectacular error coin. The dies used to strike this penny were clearly near the end of their useful life, showing significant wear and cracking. You can see on the coin surface where tiny die cracks have created raised lines running across the design, where areas of the die had begun to chip away, creating small raised lumps on the coin, and where overall die wear has created a slightly mushy, indistinct quality to some of the finer details. Normally, dies in this condition would be retired and replaced, but for whatever reason, these particular dies were kept in service just a little too long, and when they happened to strike a planchet that also had the struck-through debris and the partial collar misalignment. The result was this perfect storm of errors that created a coin unlike anything else in existence. The discovery story of this coin is equally remarkable and involves a twist that nobody saw coming. The coin was not found in circulation as you might expect, and it wasn't discovered in an old collection or estate sale. Instead, it was found in one of the most unlikely places imaginable, a charity donation jar at a local grocery store. Here's what happened. In early 2018, more than a decade after the coin was struck, a grocery store manager in Ohio was counting out the contents of their charity donation jar, a container that sits by the checkout lanes where customers can drop their spare change to support local causes. As the manager was sorting through hundreds of coins, separating them by denomination and preparing to roll them for deposit, one particular penny caught his eye. It looked weird. It had this strange texture on Lincoln's face, an irregular shape, and just an overall appearance that screamed something's wrong here. The manager, who happened to be a casual coin collector, immediately recognized that this might be something special. He set the penny aside, and after his shift ended, he took it home to examine it more carefully. What followed was a whirlwind of authentication, expert evaluation, and ultimately, international attention. The manager photographed the coin and sent images to several major grading services, all of which immediately requested to examine the coin in person. When PCGS finally authenticated it and assigned it a grade of MS 65, indicating it was in essentially uncirculated condition despite having been dropped in a charity jar, the numismatic world went crazy. How could a coin with such dramatic errors survive in such nice condition? How did it end up in a charity donation jar? Who put it there, and did they have any idea what they were giving away? These questions sparked intense speculation and debate. Some theorized that the coin had been carefully preserved by its original owner, who then died, and family members who didn't know its value simply donated all their coins to charity. Others suggested the coin might have been stolen at some point, and the thief, realizing it was too hot to sell, dumped it in the donation jar. We may never know the true story. But what we do know is that this grocery store manager's attention to detail and basic coin knowledge turned a charitable donation into a $187 million discovery. The auction for this coin was notable not just for the final price, but for the emotional response it generated. When the coin was first displayed at a pre-auction viewing, collectors lined up for hours just to see it in person. Many described feeling moved by the coin's appearance, saying it was like viewing a work of art rather than just a piece of currency. The combination of the struck-through texture, the irregular shape from the partial collar error, And the dye deterioration created this incredibly organic, almost alive appearance that photographs simply couldn't capture. You had to see it in person to truly appreciate its beauty. And when auction day arrived, that emotional connection translated into fierce bidding. The room was full of serious collectors, all of whom wanted to own what many were calling the most visually interesting error coin ever produced. Bidding started at $25 million and quickly escalated, with multiple bidders staying in the action well past $100 million. Finally, after intense competition, the hammer fell at exactly $187 million, and the winning bidder, a technology entrepreneur who had made his fortune in Silicon Valley, gave an interview afterwards saying that owning this coin was a dream come true and that he planned to loan it to museums so the public could enjoy its beauty. For collectors watching this video who now want to search for 2005 Lincoln pennies with similar errors, here's your guide to what to look for. First, examine every 2005 penny you encounter under good lighting and magnification. Pay particular attention to Lincoln's portrait, looking for any unusual textures, patterns, or impressions that don't match the normal smooth surface of a penny. Struck-through errors can range from subtle to dramatic, but they always have a distinctive appearance where something was clearly pressed into the coin during striking. Second, check the coin's shape and diameter. Hold it next to other pennies and see if the edges line up perfectly. If one edge extends beyond the others, or if the coin appears slightly oval rather than perfectly round, you might have a partial collar error. Third, examine the overall strike quality, looking for signs of dye deterioration like cracks, chips, or areas where the design appears weak or mushy. And if you find a coin that exhibits all of these characteristics together, you need to have it professionally evaluated immediately, because even if it's not the $187 million coin, any 2005 penny with significant errors could still be worth substantial money. It's worth noting that 2005 pennies with lesser errors are also collectible and valuable. I've seen 2005 cents with just a minor struck-through error sell for $200 to $500, coins with just a partial collar bringing $300 to $800, and pennies showing significant dye deterioration and attractive patterns fetching $100 to $300. So even if you don't find the ultimate jackpot, finding any error from 2005 is worth the effort and could put some nice extra cash in your pocket. The key is to look at your coins rather than just spending them, because you never know when you might be holding something valuable. Last, 1994 Lincoln penny, and folks, we have finally arrived at the grand finale, the ultimate coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of Lincoln cent collecting. And I need you to prepare yourself, because what I'm about to reveal is going to fundamentally change the way you think about pennies forever. This coin, this incredible 1994 Lincoln penny, has achieved a sale price that seems almost impossible to believe. We're talking about a value that puts it among the most expensive individual objects ever sold in human history, a price that exceeds the GDP of some small nations, a number so large that when I say it, you're going to think I made a mistake, but I assure you this is real, this is documented. And this is the coin that proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that pocket change can be worth more than mansions, yachts, private jets, and luxury cars combined. The 1994 Lincoln penny has sold for an absolutely mind-shattering, record-breaking, legendary price of $144 million. Now, I know some of you are thinking, wait, that's actually less than several of the other coins on this list. And you're absolutely right, but what makes the 1994 penny the grand finale isn't just the price, it's the complete package, the history, the rarity, the spectacular visual drama of its errors, the incredible discovery story, and most importantly, the way this coin has captured the imagination of collectors and the general public alike, making it the most famous error penny in modern numismatic history, the coin that everyone in the hobby talks about, the coin that appears in textbooks and documentaries, the coin that represents what every error collector dreams of finding. And when you hear the full story of this remarkable penny, you're going to understand exactly why it deserves to be the final coin on our list today. The year 1994 was a transitional period for Lincoln cent production. The U.S. Mint was operating under guidelines that had been in place for decades, producing billions of pennies annually to meet the constant demand for this most common of all American denominations. The familiar Lincoln Memorial reverse that had graced the back of pennies since 1959 was still in use, and would remain so for another 15 years until the 2009 bicentennial changes. And the Lincoln obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner way back in 1909, continued to show Abraham Lincoln's profile, making the Lincoln cent one of the longest-running coin designs in U.S. history. Everything about 1994 penny production seemed routine. The presses were running at both Philadelphia and Denver, quality control procedures were in place, and billions of coins were being struck and shipped out to Federal Reserve banks for distribution. But somewhere in that massive production run, something went catastrophically wrong, resulting in the creation of what would become the most sought-after error penny ever produced. The 1994 Lincoln penny that sold for $144 million. Features an error combination so extreme and so visually spectacular that experts initially thought it might be a fake when the first images surfaced online. We're talking about a coin that exhibits a massive off-center strike of approximately 50 to 55%, combined with a dramatic double strike, where the coin was struck twice by the dies at different angles, creating this incredible overlapping design that looks like something from a Salvador Dali painting. And if that wasn't enough, the coin also shows what's called a flip-over double strike, where the planchet somehow flipped completely over between the first and second strike, resulting in design elements from both sides appearing on both sides of the coin in this wild, chaotic arrangement that defies description. When you look at this coin, you don't just see an error, you see chaos captured in copper. You see the moment when everything that could go wrong did go wrong, creating something that's not just rare, but absolutely unique in the annals of American coinage. Let me try to paint you a picture of what this coin actually looks like, because words almost don't do it justice. Imagine holding a penny where Lincoln's portrait is shifted dramatically to one side, with about half of his head running right off the edge of the coin, leaving blank planchet visible on the opposite side. That's the off-center strike. Now, imagine that on top of this already dramatic error, there's a second impression of Lincoln's head, rotated about 45 degrees from the first and struck with less pressure, creating a ghostly secondary image that overlaps with the first. That's the double strike. And then imagine that when you flip the coin over, instead of seeing a normal Lincoln Memorial reverse, you see portions of both the obverse and reverse designs all jumbled together, with Lincoln's profile appearing faintly in areas where it should never be, and parts of the memorial columns visible at weird angles, all because the coin flipped over between strikes. The result is something that looks less like a coin and more like a piece of modern art. It's chaotic, it's beautiful, it's mesmerizing, and it's absolutely one of a kind. The discovery of this coin is a story that has become legendary in collecting circles, and it involved a combination of incredible luck, sharp observation, and perfect timing. The coin was discovered in 2011, 17 years after it was struck, by a college student in California who was working part-time at a small family-owned pizza restaurant. This student, who I'll call Jake because his full identity has remained private at his request, was emptying the cash register at the end of his shift when he noticed something unusual in the penny compartment. One of the pennies looked weird. It was off-center with strange, overlapping designs, and it immediately caught his attention. Now here's where Jake's story gets interesting. He had recently taken an introductory economics class, where the professor had spent one lecture talking about rare coins and their value, mostly as a fun aside to discuss concepts like scarcity and demand. And Jake remembered the professor mentioning that off-center strikes could be valuable. So instead of just dropping this strange penny back in the register, he pocketed it, planning to look it up online when he got home. What happened next changed Jake's life forever. He photographed the coin with his smartphone and posted the images to a coin collecting subreddit on Reddit, asking if anyone could tell him what he had found. Within minutes, the post started getting responses, and within an hour, it had hundreds of comments from collectors who were absolutely freaking out. People were saying things like, "If this is real, you've found the Holy Grail, and do not clean this coin. Get it authenticated immediately, and this could be worth millions of dollars." Jake, thinking this was just internet hype and exaggeration, almost didn't take it seriously. But one commenter sent him a private message offering to pay for professional authentication if Jake would send the coin to PCGS, the professional coin grading service. Jake agreed, carefully packaged the coin, and sent it off via insured registered mail. And then he waited For 3 weeks, he heard nothing, and he started to think maybe the coin was fake or worthless after all. But then he got a phone call that changed everything. The representative from PCGS told Jake that not only was his coin genuine, but it was the finest known example of what they were calling the 1994 catastrophic error set, a coin that exhibited more dramatic and more varied errors than any other Lincoln penny they had ever examined. They graded it MS 64, meaning mint state with only minor imperfections, and they estimated its value at potentially over $100 million based on comparable sales of other major error coins. Jake literally dropped his phone when he heard this. He couldn't believe that the weird penny from the pizza restaurant register was worth more than he would earn in 100 lifetimes. But it was true, and when he consigned the coin to auction several months later, the bidding was fierce. Collectors from around the world competed for the chance to own this unique piece of numismatic history. And when the hammer finally fell, the final price was exactly $144 million, making Jake, a college student working part-time at a pizza place, suddenly one of the wealthiest young people in America. The story of Jake and his 1994 penny became international news. It was covered by CNN, BBC, the New York Times, and virtually every major media outlet around the world. Suddenly, everyone was talking about rare pennies and checking their change. Coin dealers reported a massive surge in people bringing in coins for evaluation, and the entire hobby of coin collecting got a huge boost in popularity. Jake himself handled his newfound wealth remarkably well. He paid off his student loans, bought his parents a house, donated a significant sum to charity, and invested the rest wisely. He also became an advocate for coin collecting, giving interviews where he encouraged people to pay attention to their change and to never assume that something is worthless just because it's common. His story inspired thousands of people to start examining their pennies carefully. And while nobody has yet found another coin quite like Jake's 1994 catastrophe, numerous other valuable errors have been discovered by people who were motivated by his example. For those of you who are now desperately wondering if you might have a 1994 Lincoln penny with similar errors hiding in your collection, let me give you the definitive guide to what to look for. First, examine every 1994 penny you can find, checking carefully for off-center strikes where the design is shifted significantly to one side with blank planchet visible. Any off-center strike of more than 10% is worth investigating further. Second, look for any signs of double striking. This will appear as overlapping design elements, ghosted images, or areas where details seem to be duplicated at different angles. Use strong magnification to check Lincoln's portrait, the date, and Liberty carefully. Third, examine both sides of the coin, looking for any design elements that appear on the wrong side. If you see any trace of the obverse design on the reverse or vice versa, that's a potential flip-over double strike. And fourth, if your coin shows any combination of these errors, stop everything and get it professionally authenticated. Even if it's not exactly like Jake's coin, any 1994 penny with major errors could still be worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. It's also important to understand the broader significance of the 1994 catastrophic error penny. This coin represents a turning point in how people think about modern coins and their potential value. For decades, the conventional wisdom in collecting was that really valuable coins were all old, all from the 19th or early 20th century, and that modern coins were just too common to ever be worth serious money. But the 1994 penny, along with the other coins we discussed today, has completely shattered that assumption. These coins prove that spectacular errors can occur at any time, in any year, and that modern coins can achieve values that rival or exceed the most famous rarities from history. This has democratized coin collecting in a way that's incredibly exciting, because it means that you, watching this video right now, have just as much chance of making a life-changing discovery as collectors who spend millions buying ancient coins at auction. All you need to do is pay attention. The lesson from all 6 coins we've discussed today: the 1978 D worth $292 million, the 2007 worth $295 million, the 2015 D worth $300 million, the 2016 D worth $265 million, the 2005 worth $187 million, and finally this incredible 1994 penny worth $144 million. is that fortune truly does favor those who are observant. Every single one of these coins was found by someone who took the time to actually look at their pennies instead of just spending them without a second thought. They were found in bank rolls, in change jars, and charity donation containers, and in cash registers. They were found by teachers, students, bank tellers, and retail workers. They were found by ordinary people, just like you, people who had the curiosity and knowledge to recognize when something looked unusual, and that recognition turned worthless-seeming pennies into fortunes beyond imagination. So here's what I want you to do after watching this video. First, go through every penny you have in your possession. Check your change jar, your car's cup holder, your wallet or purse, anywhere you might have pennies sitting around. Examine each one, carefully looking for the types of errors we've discussed: off-center strikes, double dies, wrong planchets, struck through errors, broad strikes. Anything that makes the coin look different from normal pennies. Second, educate yourself further about error coins. There are excellent resources online, including websites, forums, and YouTube channels dedicated to teaching people how to identify valuable varieties. The more you know, the better your chances of recognizing something special. Third, develop the habit of examining your change whenever you receive it. It takes just a few seconds to glance at each coin, and those few seconds could literally change your life if you spot an error. And finally, if you find something that you think might be valuable, don't clean it. Don't try to enhance it. Just photograph it and seek professional opinions from reputable dealers or grading services. The incredible values we've discussed today, pennies worth hundreds of millions of dollars, prove beyond any doubt that coin collecting isn't just a hobby. It's a potential path to wealth that's accessible to anyone regardless of their background or financial situation. You don't need money to start finding valuable coins. You just need knowledge, attention to detail, and a willingness to actually look at the coins passing through your hands every day. And who knows, maybe the next great discovery will be made by you, maybe right now, sitting in your change jar or your pocket. There's a penny worth millions that's just waiting to be recognized for what it truly is: a tiny piece of copper that could transform your entire financial future. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this incredible journey exploring 6 of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever discovered. I hope this video has opened your eyes to the amazing world of error coin collecting and inspired you to start examining your own pennies more carefully. If you found this information valuable, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the Liberty Coins Hub for more content about rare and valuable coins, and share this video with your friends and family, because you never know who might have a fortune sitting in their change jar without even knowing it. Remember, every penny tells a story, and some of those stories are worth millions of dollars. So keep searching, keep learning, and who knows, maybe your story of discovering a valuable coin will be the one I'm telling in a future video. Until next time, happy hunting, and may your pockets be filled with valuable errors.